Yes, no, I have to start with David Haye's loss last week in the pouring rain of a dreadful Hamburg summer night. On the night Vladimir Klitschko dominated, he was quite brilliant. It was not a great night for Haye or British boxing. Let's not forget that. The man in Haye's corner and the man who shaped Haye's rapid rise from cruiserweight world champion to world heavyweight champion is Adam Booth. He was there again last week. Now, I spoke to Adam earlier and I started by asking him if he sat with David and talked over last weekend's fight since the final bell in Hamburg.
Well, yeah, we've had a chat, but not about too much serious. Just sitting there reflecting and having a drink, basically.
Adam, during the night itself, was there a point in the fight, when he was coming back round after round, when you thought he's just not responding, I'm just not getting to him? Was there a point when that was happening?
Yeah, after, I think, round 3, 4 and 5, I was beginning to feel really confident because although David, I've watched the fight quite a few times now, I have David winning the third, but up to the end of the 5th round, I had it 4-1 to Vlad. Mm-hmm. But having said that, all the rounds were very tight.
Yeah. He won them with 3 jabs, yeah.
Pardon?
He won them with 3 jabs kind of thing.
Yeah. They were very tight, tight rounds because both of them were struggling to land cleanly on the other one. Mm-hmm. But then I remember having the feeling around 7 and 8 after sort of asking David to follow up the positions and the opportunities he was creating. That he wasn't responding. He couldn't do it. He then said his legs weren't working, and there could have been a number of reasons for that. And then the fight sort of gradually slipped away. He had a big effort in I think the end of the 11th and the 12th round, but by that point, Vlad had just controlled the fight too much. And having gone back and watched it, I'm under no illusions now. The reason why the fight turned, I think, was there was a fantastic right hand that Vlad landed in the 6th
round,
and I firmly believe that is pretty much what sort of made David more cautious about going in, and able to Vlad to gain more control. And essentially that's the whole element of boxing: hit and don't get hit, and use the punches that you land to control the fight. And Vlad did it very, very well. So
there's no excuses about Vlad was just too big or faster than we expected. You're not making those excuses. You're just saying it just didn't work on the night, and he caught David with a terrific right hand.
Well, Vlad being too big, I don't think is an excuse. It's just a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't moan about it now because we knew how big he was before we went into it. And it's just he boxed out of his skin. I've seen a lot of his fights now in the lead up to this, and I just think the speed that he pressured David with, as in how quickly he applied his size in front of him, and the speed also that he went back and continuously went back. He didn't just go back the one step that he normally takes. He went back 3 and 4. And his game plan nullified the strengths that David has. Boxing is a sport about styles, and Vlad used all of his attributes and his advantages along with his game plan to win. The first 6 rounds I thought were very tight.
Yeah. Did you think that David would get to him after 5 or 6 rounds? Was that part of one of your game plans or your game plan?
No, we thought that David would get to him in the first couple of rounds, and when he didn't, he then had to sort of adjust and just be a bit more patient whilst not getting caught, which he did. Mm-hmm. We felt that he was definitely getting closer to him. He caught him a few times in the 3rd, and he was getting each attack he was doing. He was started landing heavy jabs, and he was getting closer. But like I said, in the 6th, by getting closer, you put yourself in a territory where it's more dangerous. And that became apparent in the 6th round, because when I first saw the shot, at the time I remember thinking, thank Christ I didn't land.
And it did.
And it turned out it did.
Now, were you surprised that Vlad, how aggressive Vlad was from the first round?
No, David.
You expected
I always
that?
believed that David motivated Vlad to train as hard as he ever has done and to fight as aggressively as he ever has done and probably ever could. So I knew that. But in doing so, the way, thought, okay, well, you make him aggressive, which means he's going to be there more. But Vlad very sensibly turned his aggression into his movements. And if he moved back aggressively and then regained his ground aggressively. So he just boxed very well.
Now, Adam, looking back on it, what do you think, if anything, you could have done to change the course of the fight? I mean,
Honestly,
have you sat down with yourself and thought, you know what,
Yeah,
perhaps we should... What do you think?
Oh, I've been awake every night thinking about it, and it's all a question of styles. And David's got strengths and weaknesses, and the only other thing would have been to say to him, earlier in the fight, you just got to swing at him, forget about technique. But in doing so, would have left him more exposed, more at risk of getting knocked out, more at risk of getting caught, and that would have just been a crazy suicidal thing to do, because it's still a sport where you've got to protect yourself and not get hurt. And in the one round where David did just mindlessly throw caution to the wind, at the end of the 11th, I said, right, this fight's gone. The only chance you have is to catch him. You just got to get reckless and aggressive. Just make sure you keep moving your head as you do it. And in the 12th round, he was more reckless, and although he caught Vlad, he got nailed 3 times himself.
He did, yeah, three good shots.
So to level the accusation that he didn't try is simply just totally unfair.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, let's stick with the night for a moment. Is there anything in the build-up that you personally or David regrets? Any of the things he said? Do you think in the light of day, I know we're all geniuses the next afternoon, as most of the British press were by about midnight out in Hamburg. But looking back on it, are there things that you regret now? No, not at all. I think that the fight, and I know that David doesn't, because the whole thing about having a big fight is that you've got to make people care. Yeah, of course.
And people want to see it, And Vlad knew what we were doing. He knew that David was playing the game, let Vlad be the nice guy and David be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Vlad just lost his way and started taking it all personally, but David just kept going with it. But he wanted to get under Vlad's skin, there's no doubt about that, he did. And he wanted to draw attention to the fight, and he did. He put a lot of pressure on himself in doing that. And there's a lot of people afterwards, and it's ironic afterwards, people in the press were obviously waiting for a long, long time to give David a good shoeing. And they decided to, some of them decided to spitefully stick the boot in. And it's not a question of opinions on boxing and how we behaved and we did. There's some personal BS coming out as well, and it's just a shame. It's a bit nasty, but it's the world we live in. David will brush himself down and get on with his life. Yeah.
Now let's talk about getting on with his life. There was, David's talked and you've talked about it for a while now. This idea of retirement in October when he turns 31. I know I'm not going to ask you to tell us what he's going to do and where he's going to be, but I mean, what is the plan? Is there like a deadline in 2 weeks that you and him are going to decide you will continue, or is he definitely going to continue and you're going to start looking at opponents? Where do we stand?
As far as I'm concerned, David was always going to retire by his 31st birthday.
Sure.
My opinion doesn't change on that.
Sure.
If David wants to fight before October the 13th, then he's just got to let me know.
And what about if he wants to fight after October the 13th?
That's his choice.
Would you be with him then, Adam?
The thought of that is weighing heavy on my mind at the moment, and I don't really want to think about it because
Sure.
they don't have to make that decision yet.
Sure.
If you look at, this week we're absolutely gutted because we really believed that even though it was a 50-50 fight, that David had such a great chance to win it, and it didn't happen, and we just got that feeling of being gutted.
Yeah.
But also, if you look back at David's career and how it's gone inside and outside the ring, I can't do anything but look at it with pride and just think what a monumental success his career has been. No, it's a shame that it's finished like this.
And I take all that on board. I mean, it just seems to me that, he didn't take a beating, although, he took some good shots. He had a last round and 6th round and several in other rounds. I can't see any moral reason for not being with him after October the 13th, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm being straight with you. If he decides he's going to fight, and he wants to fight in, I don't know, October, November, and then have another one next year, I mean, are you sort of even suggesting that you might not be with him? I can't see why you wouldn't be with him.
No, I haven't said that, but, it was always, I was the one that said back in 2002, in and out by this age.
Sure.
And we'll try and have it like this, and everything he said hasn't changed that. And since Saturday, he sort of said things that slightly contradict it. But he and I haven't really had that conversation yet.
Cool.
So until we have, there's nothing I can say. But like I say, he's the fighter.
Yeah.
It's his career. He's the one that's got to decide what he wants to do. My because I care about him. My first thought is always to make sure that he's well and he's healthy and he's not hurt.
Yeah, and he is well and he is healthy and he's not hurt. Pride hurt, but not physically.
No. But listen, you know what it's like when some fighters, you see some fighters and they retired years ago, and all of a sudden you're hearing them talking and you're thinking that doesn't sound right. Yet at the point when they retired, they sounded fine. And between retiring, sounding fine, and then being a bit later on, you think, what happened in the last few years?
Well, that's valid. I mean, he's been in pro fights, amateur fights, 20 years in a gym, and you're absolutely right. There is always a point. But I just let me ask you this one final question, Adam, and I know the answer, and I know what I've written already what I think. But are you slightly dismayed or upset or annoyed that there's a suggestion that some people seem to think he's let people down or conned people? Let's use the strong word.
If anybody thinks that David's con people in what sense, Steve?
Well, no, just you talk to some people and they say, well, he promised to knock him out. I'm talking about press and and some fans, but mostly press. I mean, I seem to be having arguments constantly with people that don't seem to understand how hard it is to get hit by someone who's 17 stone.
Exactly, and you're talking about people that don't understand, and you can't. People will see the fight and judge David how they want to.
Sure.
You'll look for the evidence to support what you want. There's a lot of people giving David a lot of credit, a lot of people complimenting him, but at the moment it's the naysayers and the critics that are having their voice, and they're entitled to it.
Of course they are.
But to say that he conned people, listen, I implore any of you, you go and take a right hand by Vladimir Klitschko and see how your head feels. And he didn't just take one, Steve. He took many, yet he still tried. In his own way, remember, David's never been a wade-forward pressure fighter.
Of course not.
So he wasn't going to start being that now. And the ridiculous suggestion that he should have pressed him back behind jabs and constantly pushed forward is just totally ignorant of David's style, because if he had done that, he would have probably got blasted out very quickly. He's never had that style.
And then he'd be criticised for fighting a fight that's not his fight and getting knocked out.
Exactly, yeah. Listen, it's a sport of opinions. Everyone has their opinion.
Good.
I have mine about other fighters, but I know what David is as a fighter, and to suggest that he conned people or didn't try, then all you got to do is go back and watch it with the volume turned down and see the right hands that he took, and yet kept trying in his own way. It's just that Vlad was too big, too good, too strong, hit too hard, and didn't allow David to win the fight. But that wasn't because David didn't try. He did.
He did indeed try. Anyway, Adam Booth in brutally honest style there, and I've been asking for your Haye opinions, and they're mostly nasty, not all nasty, and fans are entitled to their opinion. They paid good money to go out there, and they expected David to charge and chase. But, what I would say is that I'm in a privileged position, remember, in the third or fourth row, 10 foot back from the ring. He took an awful lot of shots. His face was fairly mashed up after the fight, okay? He was caught and he was hurt repeatedly. In the last round, on 3 occasions, he had to bite heavily on his gum shield, and you could see the white of the gum shield. That's not a man who didn't try. That's a man who got it all wrong. That's a man who couldn't respond. That's a man who, as Adam Booth said there, just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it on the night. It's not a man that took the money and ran. It's not a man that's showed a cowardly streak. I mean, I'm hearing all sorts of things. You can't call people cowards. It's just not on.